Hi, everybody. Good evening. It's time for the Sahuarita Tea Party, and this is our breaking news live stream. I apologize for the voice. My allergies are kicking up on me now, so if you'll allow me to continue, there are a lot of things going on in the country and locally. And I would like you all to set aside all of the coronavirus lectures and speculation right now. And I'd like to take you back to last Sunday night when we had the National Tea Party Patriots local coordinators phone call, and in that call we had a representative for President Trump, and he went through a little Q&A session, and the big concern of everyone on the call was, of course, when are we going to get the country going again? Isn't there a happy medium where we can, where we can run the country and get back to our great economy and still protect ourselves and save lives? So everybody felt there has to be a middle ground. It can't be one or the other. So I'll read you some of what was sent out in an email later in the week, and this was in Jenny Beth's email. She says, his name was Paul Teller, and said Paul discussed the extension of the social distancing guidelines until April 30th, which of course was everybody's big concern. And President Trump still wants to try to reopen parts of the economy sometime in April and is working on plans for that based on all of the relevant factors. The president is aware and very concerned by the damage closing the economy is doing, and he does not want the cure to be worse than the disease. He also discussed the Small Business Administration's programs for those who own small businesses that are suffering because of the forced shutdowns. And of course, they opened up the small business loans today, which is great. We know that they allocated $350 billion in the $2 trillion bill that they passed to help small businesses. And if they keep the same people on their payroll, they will not have to pay that loan back. So the government will cover the cost of the loan. So, and I heard actually the leader in that today loaning money was the Bank of America. So that's all good stuff. We have to get the economy going again, and we must help small business, because small business is the real backbone of the economy and what's generated this great economy we have now. So anyway, I hope you're all doing well. I'm going to take a real short break and then give our special guest tonight a live interview with Anthony Sizer. And at the time we scheduled the interview, Anthony was the chairman of Legislative District 2, and so there's been an update to all that. But I'll let Anthony talk about that with you folks and tell you what's going on. So anyway, we'll be back in about let's say 5 to 7 minutes. Okay, see you in a little bit. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. An allergy pill later and a short break. I see some people have joined us, so welcome everybody. One of the things I want to comment on, we had to fix a couple little audio problems too. But watching Fox Business the last few days, and we have live streaming television, so we get all our television over the internet. And watching these guys struggle with their live interviews from people isolated all over the place, having audio and video problems or no connection at all. It makes me feel better because when we have a problem, people just have to understand that it's doesn't all work 100% all the time, but we do the best we can, and we hope that brings you a good show. So I'm going to give a call to Anthony Sizer now, and we'll get him on here in just a few minutes. So stand by.
Hey, Don.
Hey, Mr. Sizer, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. I'm
Okay.
trying to get my ear set figured out.
Okay.
I also connected my laptop to the physical Ethernet instead of the Wi-Fi, so it might actually work better.
Yeah, you'll get better, probably get better audio. Hey, I like your shirt and I like your flag behind you. That's great.
Yeah.
All American, huh? So are your earbuds working?
No, it doesn't look like it,
Okay.
but I can hear you through the laptop.
Yeah, well, what you need to do is there's a settings function in Skype that you can choose which microphone you want to use and which audio you want to listen on.
Oh, okay, so that would be audio, video settings,
Yeah.
and speaker, microphone. It looks like it only gives me, it doesn't give me any other microphone options in Skype.
It's not showing your so it's not showing the microphone on your earbuds.
It doesn't look like it, but
Yeah.
it's synchronized because
Okay.
I see the Bluetooth thing on the phone.
Yeah, that's fine. If you can hear me fine, it's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, we can proceed with what we're doing. So let me get you on the screen here, get you on the studio screen.
Okay.
Stand by here a minute.
All right.
I got myself up there again, but I don't want that. I don't want two Don Woolleys up there. I want a Don Woolley and an Anthony Sizer. So
Okay.
and there you are. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've got Anthony Sizer on video, and hope you all can see that.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, say hi to everybody, Anthony. A little bit of introduction. When I sent out the email, Anthony, to tell folks we were going to do the show tonight and that you were the guest, I introduced you as the LD2 chairman, and I thought, well, I did that because I knew your little secret, but I figured you'd want to announce to anybody that had not heard what's really going on now. So why don't you go ahead and do that?
Well, first of all, looks like the screen is, here we go. First of all, LD2 has been an extraordinary experience. We started off from 52 precinct committeemen to 108 precinct committeemen. We were continuing to get precinct committeemen throughout after the cutoff that Board of Supervisors would no longer appoint. That's actually a good sign that we've built up a pretty good relationship with the community, and we're connecting with the community, and we were growing them. And so when it came down to it, obviously, I did announce to many throughout the year we were trying to fill every slot, candidacy slot for this upcoming election, and Board of Supervisors for District 2 was one of them. As you know, Board of Supervisors District 4 is John Backer, and the District 2, however, was a little bit more complex because it doesn't include all of Green Valley, so some of the folks that were interested were actually outside of the boundary. And towards early and all the way through late January, I was hoping that we would get somebody in, and that was getting to the last minute. So I, as a chairman, decided, well, we don't want to leave a supervisory election, especially with the way the county has been handling our government power, and certainly plenty of abuse of government power. So I wanted to get in and be that accountable individual. And working with Pima GOP, the Republican Party, it was encouraging to hear that we got candidates in every district for the Board of Supervisors. So
you are a candidate in District 2 running against the incumbent Ramon Valadez.
Running against Ramon Valadez, and it looks like we have 3 Democrats in the primary, and I'm the only Republican in the Republican primary. So I think that's obviously, we know that there's a challenge because Democrats have a majority, but I believe my observations as chairman, while I was chairman, I saw a lot of folks getting misinformation and being convinced to vote Democrat when their values were actually more aligned with Republicans. They were just misinformed, and it's pretty consistent with the residents from all the way down at the bottom end of LD2, which was Nogales, which should have been a really strong Democratic area. And a lot of folks, they may have been registered Democrats, but once they realized what they were voting for, many of them were willing to jump to the Republican Party because it went against their values. So throughout that, Southern Tucson is the same thing. So part of my campaign, now that I've announced that I'm stepping down as chairman and running as the Board of Supervisors according to the bylaws of the LD2, I've basically handed the reins over to Kathleen Wishnick, who is the first vice chair, who is now the interim chairman of LD2. And I've basically rolled off of chairman, and now I am focusing primarily on the District 2 Board of Supervisors race.
So we absolutely congratulate you. When I say we, I mean Patty and I. You know that we'll support you, and we hope all these other people in District 2, which includes the town of Sahuarita, Rancho Sahuarita, most of it, and like Anthony said, up into Tucson. And boy, we've needed someone to run against Valadez for a while, the anti-law enforcement incumbent. So this is really great, and I salute you for doing it. We always are proud of people who want to get in the race. Now you have some experience being a candidate because you ran in 2018 or 2016. I'm sorry, was it 2016 or 2018?
Both. 2018
Both.
was the
Okay.
most recent one, and that was my first appearance in LD2.
Right.
And I actually ran I'm not disappointed. Sometimes some people look at the win or lose as the defining uh, strength and whether they were successful or not. And that's really not the factor here, because being in a strong Democrat district, getting 23,000 votes is not a disappointing
Yeah, you're right.
result in the election. And quite frankly, I enjoyed meeting folks, learn about their problems and issues and opinions. And my viewpoint has always been from the idea of problem solving. Naturally, I'm an engineer. I'm not a career politician. I don't have a political science degree. So naturally, I want to ask folks, what are the issues that you're dealing with? How can I help as an elected official in resolving some of their issues? And quite frankly, I certainly enjoy the government aspect and the power. I've experienced a upbringing or an environment where I grew up in India, being an orphan in India. I certainly experienced a world without the Constitution, the freedom, individual right to career and opportunity. So, being an orphan in India, I was in a caste system in a sense, and so that's what drives me to the passion of running to represent folks, because many here don't really understand or see the viewpoint that I've lived through, that we can't let our freedom and we can't continue to allow government get so big that they are determining our future, our success, including our children's minds, and we need to take an active role and prevent what is India from happening here. We certainly want to continue a capital environment where it's education, hard work, personal responsibility, right?
Yeah, and those are such good points, and I'm glad you brought up your journey to the United States. I mean, you have a fascinating story, and I guess what we like to see in Americans is that, like you said, you want to see people in the United States appreciate, this country, and immigrants, legal immigrants really do appreciate this country, and
Absolutely.
they had a reason they wanted to come, and they're overjoyed to be here, and and we love that. So what do you think? What do you think about District 2, and what kind of things do we need to get done around here? Everybody's always talking about the roads, of course, and but we have in our particular area, Rancho Sahuarita, and we both live in Rancho Sahuarita area. We have good roads. We have a little town that takes care of the roads, and we're okay. But certainly the unincorporated parts of the county aren't doing so well. We know Marana's okay, Oro Valley's pretty good, but there are other sections, particularly unincorporated in parts of Tucson that are county that are a mess. But that's not the only problem that we have. So tell us what you have in mind, Anthony. And this is early in your campaign, and I know you're just announcing, but you must have some idea of some things you'd like to see changed and some things you'd like to do.
Yeah, well, one of the big drivers, while observing from a chairman role while the Stone Guardian voting occurred by the Board of Supervisors, and continually watching the Board of Supervisors, obviously a majority Democrat vote. So the two Republicans, they can always vote against things, but it really doesn't do them any good when the majority vote always swings to the left. And really the left is that lack of accountability. And certainly we need to protect our borders, and we need to fund our law enforcement to be able to do their job in protecting American citizens within the United States. And we can't neglect that. And I can certainly say that without offending immigrants, legal immigrants, because if you're intending to do good, you're going to come in through the legal process. And I certainly did that. And I certainly know what a country looks like when there is no border, when there's economic impact. I came out of that. That's more of a Democrat-style government, and the social structure is just rich and the poor. There's no middle class, and that's a dangerous style of society to be in because all it does is it doesn't give individuals the personal responsibility, and that is exactly what's in the Constitution and our expectations. We also have a responsibility that is to participate in the election process, is to participate in getting to know candidates so that we are getting accountable individuals who are more representatives of the people rather than a group or a club. We need to be more engaged in the election process. So some of the things that I want to look at if I was to be, when I'm to be elected as Board of Supervisor, would be the election process. I believe that the database being managed by one single entity, which is currently a Democrat, controlling that database and being the sole auditor of it, elections integrity does not have the legal rights to question the database, voter database. And that is a big question that I want to be able to answer. And I would be on the inside as a member of the board to figure out, well, how can we fix that? And how can we have neutral oversight rather than Democrat Party managing that database, including, by my observation, in the 2018 election, I've got hundreds and hundreds of postcards that I had sent out as a candidate. And I had used a database that was validated, confirmed. It is the same database that the early ballots go out to, those specific address. But yet I had hundreds and hundreds of postcards that utilized that validated voter database, and they returned back to me, which means, well, what is going on with the early ballots when they goes to those addresses, right? So that's a county thing, county recorder, and we need to look at that process. We need to allow election integrity or a neutral integrity group to be able to validate the voter database, because right now it's just the Democrat Party who is in control of the recorders, and that's who manages and controls that.
And such good points. Yeah, some people call it voter fraud. I interviewed a gal on here, Dr. Laura Presley, Anthony. She's from Texas, and she leads the charge in Texas she calls it election fraud. She says it's bigger than voter fraud. There are voters that commit fraud, but there are people that are prostituting the process and turning it into election fraud. And I know that, and you probably know, they wrote a report, and you know that Bill, I'm trying to think of Bill's name that's running up in District 1. He was on that committee that overlooked the 2018 election results, and they wrote a really nice report, which David Eppheimer signed, and that report, it convinces you that there was election fraud in the county, and for sure they ignored the ballot harvesting law in Arizona that was passed a few years ago, and they have this every vote counts, right? Well,
Yep.
yeah, even if it's not signed, or if it's not the person that actually is stated it voted, or yeah, every vote counts, right? So She said they opened everything and counted everything that was delivered to their doorstep. So yeah, I think that's really an excellent thing to hammer people with, is election fraud. Good for you.
Yeah, I think as long as we have the ability, because I think the big thing is that when I asked the election integrity, and I sent him a copy of all of my hundreds and hundreds of postcards that had a vacant return to sender sticker on it by the post office, but yet it was a database
Right.
that was verified by the county recorder as being valid, which meant that it's the same database that she sent all of her early ballots, which means I'm speaking as an engineer, not as a politician here.
Right.
And once the early ballots are leaving the hands of the county recorders or elections department, wherever it gets sent out from, um, it's vulnerable to anything and everything. And then if they manage and control, and they're the only ones that are authorized to audit that database, now you've got a 1-point failure at the source, which is the database.
Yeah.
And in reality, I'm not saying this is going on. As an engineer, how would I methodically figure out how to undermine and usurp or figure out how to get away with creating fake addresses, fake signatures? In other words, if I control everything, let's say hypothetically, I'm the recorder and I'm a Democrat, and I want to create a fake database, and I'm the only one that gets to audit it and verify it, I've got control of the entire thing. So when it goes to the polling locations, everybody talks about, oh, somebody came in with the fake ID and they got an early ballot, or they've got a provisional ballot or something.
Right.
There are so many eyes at most of our polling locations, and there are both parties there. The thing is, when the signatures are verified, they're verifying it to what's in the database.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, it all falls back to the source of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
If no one else is allowed to validate the source of the database, and the signature verification is being verified to a signature, how do we know if that signature's not fake? How do we know if these folks didn't pass away and someone else attempted to, and they can have a methodical system all connected to the source point, which cannot be verified until we have a group like Election Integrity having the privilege and the authorization to go in and say, I would like to be a second set of eyes, county recorder, to what you have, and I have the right and privilege to take a look at what you have and verify it. I can guarantee that entire list of returns that I got, hundreds and hundreds of them, will definitely be removed from the roll, and we won't have ballots going out without knowing where it's going and whether it's going to end up back at the elections office being counted, right? And we had, that's very concerning.
You had you make such a good point. I know, and you can bet those ballots that were sent out, when your postcards were sent back, those ballots were probably sent to the recorder with a vote, right? Not back blank. And we've compounded the problem. We've elected a Democrat Secretary of State.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I thought there was a federal mandate for every county in the country to clean up their voter rolls. And maybe you can check that, but I know a lot of them just ignored it, across the country.
Yeah, I can tell you in my clean election experience, I don't know if you understand how the clean election works. They do utilize the voter database,
right?
And they check the $5 are being donated by the individuals who are registered to vote in that district, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
The problem is that from my experience, and this was back in 2018, the Secretary of State doesn't actually manage the county database and doesn't intrude into it. In fact,
exactly.
the Secretary of State may only generate the sample, and then they hand the list off to the counties, because when I asked them, well, who's going to be doing this verification? Is it going to be you guys, or is it going to be the county? And they said, oh, we don't manage the database. The counties do it. So we just sent them a list of all of the $5 you've donated, the ones that we picked, and then the county is the one that's responsible to check and verify that these individuals are registered, right? Which means the Secretary of State is not actually taking an active role to oversee the county has a accurate, up-to-date voter roll, which means this whole issue of those who have passed away, which by the way, I had 4 individuals who had passed away, and family members. Apparently, their mail was being forwarded to family members. Family members said, "Oh, this person passed away 5 years ago."
Mm.
And so when I was seeing that as feedback in the folks that passed away, out of those returns that I was getting, I'm surprised that the county has such a deteriorated database. And I can tell you, if I want to apply my methodical thinking to get away with stuff, the county recorder is the place to be, because you manage your own things. Secretary of State doesn't come down and verify any of those things.
Right.
And so now, how can I get away with it, right? What can I add? How many new names? How many new signatures? I'm not saying all of this stuff is happening.
Right.
We just need to have an accountable second set of eyes over the database, and the method of scrubbing and removing individuals who have moved out, who have passed away. I mean, 5 years, that's plenty. What happens with a ballot that sits in the mailbox of someone who passed away 5 years ago and is sitting in the mailbox at their home?
Sure.
Right.
Now, one of the things that a couple of points, with this coronavirus thing going on, the the national Dems are pushing for an entire mail-in vote. They've
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which, what you're talking about feeds right into how they like it to go. Now, the other thing I would say is we would recommend, as the Sahuarita Tea Party, we tell people to get off the permanent early voter list. Just
Yeah.
get yourself off of it and go vote at the poll when you vote. I mean, I know it's convenient, but let me tell you something. You're depending on people, a lot of people, to do the right thing when you mail in your vote. And I know even if you dropped your ballot by the polling place on election day, your mail-in ballot, it will go through the same process. It gets counted the same way. It has to be verified and down the line. So you got people handling this stuff that it's not good. So I applaud you for talking about it. I know Bill Baird was I was trying to think of Bill's last name. Bill Baird, when he ran for recorder, he talked about some of these things. But I think we all believe there's election fraud. I'm convinced of it. There are many people on our side that don't believe there's any election fraud, but I'm convinced there is, and there are many ways to affect the system, and change the vote. And we're already in an area, and I think District 2 is if I'm not wrong, it's pretty balanced in Republicans versus Democrats versus Independents.
Oh, yeah. The quick way to tell is the minimum signatures that they have to get.
Mm-hmm.
And the Democrats, they need 173, and the Republicans need 120.
Okay.
So they're not too far apart from each other. That means we have Democrats and Republicans fairly close to each other as far as the voter registration.
Right, and you've got a good conservative area in the town of Sahuarita, I think, for the most part, particularly Rancho Sahuarita. People, there might be independents, but independents, they're basically financially conservative people. They may have some social things that differ from Republicans, but they're conservative with their money, et cetera. So I don't think. I think every election, a lot of independents, if you look at the balance, the majority of independents vote the Republican way, and they don't vote the Democrat way. So they're important. But anyway, so what else can you tell us about District 2? I know Valadez absolutely has opposed Operation Stone Garden and has not wanted to give Sheriff Napier the tools he needs. And what other things do you know of Valadez has supported through the years? I know he's supported the soccer fields, which is just a total waste of money. We have all those expensive soccer fields that the county paid for along I-10 that haven't even been used yet, because at first because they just finished the construction, and now it's all closed down because of what's going on in the country. So, they had the bowling alley that had the asbestos problem that they purchased, and he supported all those things. He's supported
Absolutely.
Huckleberry 100% of the time, I'm sure.
Yep. And I think the big thing with Valadez, I mean, most Democrats play this card. They try and claim that, oh, I'm really Republican or I'm really conservative. I'm just Democrat because that's what it takes for me to get elected. The problem is that it's not what our founding fathers intended of representatives, and that is what Valadez is supposed to be. And I want to give you an example. Valadez is the county supervisor, and when you look at the county and the quality of the environment, and you can take a look at the roads itself, you had mentioned earlier, you can tell when it's a Democrat leadership running that environment. So you mentioned Marana, Oro Valley, Sahuarita. All three of those have conservative leadership in there, and that's why their social, their public services, the roads and stuff. I mean, just by looking at the environment, you can tell, well, this is a Republican, conservative-run environment. And as soon as you leave Sahuarita, as you go towards any of the county locations or even into Tucson, the roads start to get bumpy, potholes everywhere.
Terrible.
Right? So, but yet they're gambling off taxpayer dollars to do land deals, right? And then business venture opportunities. Folks, the Constitution says a representative is not supposed to be a gambler, not a self-gaining individual that's sitting in your office. They're supposed to be representing you. So, I mean, obviously there's a lot of things we can discuss about Valadez. Is just the fact that the Democrat Party and the platform he represents is a huge concern, because the platform brings a viewpoint and ethics that are not reflective of what our founding fathers intended when they formed our country, and what they are expecting of our elected officials, all the way from local government, state government, and the federal government. They are all still mandated by the United States Constitution, and our founders inspired and expected a specific style of ethics and viewpoints. And quite frankly, I would like to look at, as far as county, how do we enforce the Constitution, right? And I know that's a federal thing, but it's certainly, it can be looked at how that needs to be brought back in, because the Constitution is not being enforced, right? And that's where I love Mark Napier. I helped him significantly many times in getting elected, because he certainly has a constitutional mind viewpoint. He has to deal with the left-wing politics with the county, and I can certainly understand that. And that's one of the reasons why if we get a majority vote on the Board of Supervisors, that will help our law enforcement. It will help them to get back to realignment with the Constitution, right? Instead of continuing to allow a drifting away without any accountability over those elected officials.
Right. And it's always funny when I hear Democrats at different levels, they'll throw the Constitution in a Republican's face. I always believe, I don't think they even read the Constitution. What are you telling me, right? And
yeah, I don't think they read it.
No, they don't.
They use it as a buzzword.
Yeah, that's right. So so here we go. We've got Anthony Sizer challenging Ramon Valadez in District 2. We've got since Allie Miller is stepping down, we've got 2 or 3 Republicans running up in District 1. And that's a pretty red district up there. One of those is probably going to win that. We've got in District 4, we've got Steve Christie's the incumbent, and John Backer's challenging him. And honestly, a few months ago when I interviewed John Backer, Anthony, I advised him to move and run in District 2. But anyway, just my little tidbit I threw at him. But and then we've got Gabby Mercer running against Sharon Bronson now, right? In District 3. And in District 5, the incumbent supervisor, Richard Elias, passed away suddenly last weekend. And so they've got to, it'd be interesting to see if they appoint somebody before the election or if they just let somebody run for it. Kind of go to November in a stalemate, because everything's kind of stalemated now anyway. I don't even know if the county supervisors are meeting or the town councils. Maybe they're doing it by video or Skype or Zoom or whatever, But anyway, we've got a lot of action in 4 of the 5 districts, and perhaps somebody will challenge them in District 5. So this is going to be really interesting the next few months.
So I believe we have somebody on the Republican ticket running in District 5.
Oh, okay, good. Well, that's great.
I don't remember the name. I'm trying to remember.
Well, that's good. I mean,
we have one Republican in every single, minimum of one Republican in each supervisor district.
Yeah, and that's a first in the last 10 or 12 years. I don't think that's been the case. So that's really good. So tell us a little bit about Anthony Sizer. Came to the United States, became an engineer working for a large defense company, family man. Huh?
Yeah. So first of all, I certainly developed a Republican conservative view, not just my life in India up until the age of 9 is when I was adopted, but growing up in eastern Washington State, a strong left-wing state. Majority of the votes are driven by a Democrat-controlled West Coast, Seattle, Tacoma, and certainly growing up in eastern Washington, farming community, Yakima Valley, I learned the life of farming. My dad's a fruit farmer up there, about 500 acres, and Washington apple and cherries. And I know what hard work is, moving sprinkler pipes from orchard to orchard and looking for gopher holes in corn rows, why the corn is growing odd, and finding the gopher holes and patching them so that the water goes all the way to the other end. I certainly know all of the farming and hard work. I believe that's a conservative Republican value. And I remember growing up, working with my dad, all of the ridiculous policies and regulations that were put on farmers. Majority of the small farmers were essentially, over years, they were forced to be bankrupt or get bought out.
Oh yeah, sure.
By the big warehousers like Dole and all those. And so the Seattle politics was always driving to support those bigger businesses while pushing out the individual small farmers. And my dad was one of them.
While they were saying that they were for the little guy.
Yeah, while they were saying for the little guy, but they weren't.
Nope.
They would add so many taxes and fees and regulations that it just, 500 acres, $2 million in value, and my dad was earning about $30K annual salary.
Wow. Yeah.
That's not very much for a $2 million value farm. At the end, after paying all the fees and including all of the regulations that they have to obey by, his annual salary was 30 some $1,000. Obviously, I as an engineer, I make a whole lot more than that, right?
Yeah.
And but yeah, farmers are a essential part of our society.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I can tell you, growing up in India, farmers in that democrat society, third world country, that is the destination of any democrat society,
Mm.
um, is that um, farming is a vital piece, and when you neglect it, you're essentially pushing away uh, a piece of America that helped grow America.
Oh yeah. Sure.
I mean that is one of the in India, farmers are paid very minimal. In fact, I was 9 years old when I was adopted. At 10 years old, if I wasn't adopted by 10, the orphanage would automatically relocate me to a farming colony, and that's what would have been my rest of my life, because being an orphan is a caste system. I wasn't tied to any family associations to get me a college education, right?
So did your dad come to India and adopt you?
No, I always make a little joke. It's like a catalog with pictures. And my mom flipped through and say, "That's Anthony Sizer."
Let's take
Uh,
him.
yeah. But my mom named me after the first Sizer who came to America
Oh wow.
under the Sizer genealogy.
Yeah.
My mom's deep into genealogy. But I was blessed to have the opportunity to become an Eagle Scout, to become an engineer, to learn about Jesus and becoming a follower of Jesus. I wouldn't have learned and become any of these things. I work for Lockheed Martin, Skunk Works. I can mention my prior employer. I cannot mention my current employer, but
Right.
DoD contractor. But I am so grateful and blessed, and that's America. That's the constitutional republic society that gave me this opportunity, not the Indian socialist society, right?
Yeah.
So really, that's a clear point on. Yeah, I'm passionate about not letting the Indian style government or third world style government rolling into America only to relive what I had left.
Oh
Right.
sure. And well, you really have a wonderful story. I mean, and God bless your parents for bringing you here, and we just think it's really outstanding, and your whole story, Anthony. And you're going to be a great candidate. We wish you the best. Say hi to your family for Patty and I, and we'll get you back on here in a month or two and see how things are going. And thanks so much for coming on tonight.
All right. Thank you for having me, Don.
Okay, and you take care of yourself, and you stay in touch with us. Okay.
Okay.
All right. See you later. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that was Anthony Sizer. He's just going to be a terrific candidate for District 2 Supervisor, Pima County. So, hey, folks, we need to get rocking and rolling for this guy, and give him all the support he needs. You know, there's no clean elections for county candidates. So, he's got to raise money all on his own. So, we absolutely wish him the best, and it was great having him on tonight. And I hope you guys all enjoyed that. We're going to have some other supervisor candidates on here too. So anyway, that's really all we have for tonight. God bless all of you. You're all patriots. Hang in there. We'll see if the president can get the economy going before the end of April. We're hoping that it starts up in pockets, and we're seeing a lot on Twitter today about people pressing to get the economy going, Andy Biggs tweeted several times about we've got to get this economy back on track. So maybe by April 15th, if we have some areas that are looking okay, we can find that middle ground and get things going, get people working again, and we just can't keep the country completely closed down for 30 days. So, and we understand the virus, we understand the lives are at stake, but there just has to be a middle ground to this whole thing. So keep your hopes up, keep praying. God blesses this country every day, and we will have another program next week. Take care of yourselves. Again, stay safe, and see you next week.